In this video, we're going to go over the best possible diet to reverse insulin resistance in men, and we're going to go over a comprehensive case study on insulin resistance and carbohydrate metabolism. We're going to go over a lot of science in this video. We're going to go over key concepts on how you can take this and actually utilize it today to really start improving insulin resistance. We're going to go over a popular known diet in today's society called the sugar diet, why it's getting its craze, and the mechanisms behind the sugar diet, and why carbohydrate metabolism is much more beneficial. And then we're also going to go over an actual case study with my client Michael, who's 53 years old. We took from 1,200 calories to 2,900 calories, and we dropped his A1C from 11 to 5.3. So we're going to go a lot of really great stuff today, and I'm going to outline all the science for you, outline all the data for you, and we're going to, understand why insulin resistance is happening in today's society. We're going to understand how to reverse it, and then we're going to actually go through Michael's actual case study to show you how we reversed his A1C from 11 to 5.3, which typically just cut it in half. So, if you guys don't know me by now, my name's Adam Bono. I'm an online metabolic specialist, and I specialize in metabolic priming, metabolic manipulation, and key concepts around your metabolism, utilizing nutrient absorption and utilizing macronutrients correctly to influx overall hormonal patterns. So, we've worked with almost 400 plus men in the last 6 months alone, and using these strategies with metabolic priming and understanding metabolism, we've been able to have over 97% client success rate and over hundreds of client testimonials and transformations. There's over 40 client testimonials on my page as of right now. But let's get into today's video. I want to actually show you the science because I know that you guys are wanting to hear more about how to reverse insulin resistance. And I think it's a very popular question that I do get with people that do come to us is, can you reverse insulin resistance? And the answer is yes. But we have to understand where you're currently at in your fitness journey does matter. There's 3 types of individuals. Type 1 is a man who's overweight that simply just needs to focus on a calorie deficit, which means you need to just eat less food, lose weight, and you improve insulin resistance. This person's typically just overeating on calories, right? So an introduction is this part is due to the overconsumption of calories dense, nutrient poor foods, coupled with sedentary habits, resulting in a tidal wave of lifestyle illnesses linked with insulin resistance. So, basically, the American diet, the traditional American diet, is high fat, high carb, and it's causing insulin resistance because it causes what's called metabolic gridlock, right? Which puts you in a position where you're eating high fats, high carbs, and the body doesn't recognize which energy pathway to actually utilize, right? So metabolic gridlock is also known as mitochondrial gridlock, where state where the body is responsible for energy production becomes inefficient at switching between burning for different fuel sources. This leads to a buildup of metabolic byproducts and a disruption in the body's ability to respond to fluctuating energy demands. So you want metabolic flexibility. You want your body to understand what type of energy substrates, protein, carbs, or fats that is most readily available to use, and so that we have good metabolic profile. So metabolic gridlock is when the ability is impaired, leading to a gridlock where the mitochondria struggle to produce incoming fuel, resulting in a buildup of metabolic intermediates. The cause of metabolic gridlock can factors like overconsumption of calories, particularly from processed food, lack of physical activity, disruption to the body's natural diurnal rhythms, and this increases type 2 diabetes, function contribute to overweight, insulin resistance. So basically, metabolic gridlock in today's society where insulin resistance really primarily does happen, it's just the overconsumption of calories. People are well overeating because America's society is worse than it's ever been when it comes to food intake, worse than it's ever been when it comes to food industry, and it's worse as it's ever been when it comes to just lack of activity, right? And so that's primarily what insulin resistance does happen. So other ways that insulin resistance can happen is type B, low carb diets, right? Because what happens when we go keto is the body doesn't see a need for insulin when you go low carb. It can develop peripheral insulin resistance, aka adaptive glucose intolerance. This is a downregulation of insulin receptor substrates, and the body doesn't have a machinery for it because you have been giving it fats, resulting in metabolic switch into fat adaptation. If you don't use it, you lose it, right? So basically, these low carb diets and keto diets are actually causing insulin resistance. And they've even done studies on this, that low carbohydrate intake correlates with trends of insulin resistance and metabolic acidosis in healthy, lean individuals. So overall, the findings in the studies show that for the first time, low carbohydrate intake in healthy individuals of normal weight might lead to a dysfunctional glucose homeostasis, increased metabolic acidosis, and the possibility of triggering inflammation by C-peptide elevation in plasma. So this is where type 2 person actually comes into context. The type 2 person has previously overweight, used low carb diets to lose a significant amount of weight, but has run into a metabolic adaptations that have downregulated the metabolism, causing brain fog, energy crashes, muscle loss, cortisol spikes, very highly inflamed. So it's like the people that are overweight that use low carb diets as a mechanism of caloric restriction is fantastic. You probably lost 30 to 40 pounds. And the problem is when you hit that plateau, you've now downregulated the glucose receptors, which mean the body doesn't feel like it needs to use carbohydrates anymore. So it kind of just throws away the machinery of using carbohydrates. And so that therefore you become insulin resistant. And so like within type C individuals, healthy individuals with great health markers want to get to a sustainable leaner physique year round, already in lower body fat, but has used low carb to get even lower body fat, but has run into the same issues as type 2 and B. They've downregulated the actual process and the machinery that the body needs to utilize glucose properly. Now low carb diets are no longer working for this individual because they decrease health markers due to metabolic adaptations, causing brain fog, energy crashes, muscle loss, cortisol spikes, very highly inflamed, right? So adaptive glucose intolerance is what it's called. So adaptive glucose intolerance is the body's primarily difficulty in processing glucose, often seen during times after dietary changes like transitioning from a low carbohydrate to a high carbohydrate diet. It's normal physiological response as the body adjusts to a new fuel source and can manifest as a higher than normal glucose spikes after eating carbs and feeling like tired or experiencing digestive issues. So this is where most people get stuck with adaptive glucose intolerance. Type A, type B, and type C person who previously used low carb diets have put themselves in a position of insulin resistance due to adaptive glucose intolerance. So what is it? What is adaptive glucose intolerance? Adaptive glucose intolerance is not a disease but temporary state where the body struggles to produce glucose efficiently. Keep in mind, struggles to produce glucose efficiently, right? So dietary transition. It occurs when somebody is switching from a diet primary fat for energy like keto to one that relies more on carbohydrates. The body needs time to adjust its metabolism effectively to utilize new fuel sources, and its adaptation process can lead to temporary glucose intolerance. So there's usually a 2 to 3 week transitionary period where the body doesn't really understand what to do with the newfound glucose. It reduces insulin sensitivity. The body's accustomed to low carbohydrate diet. The cells may become less sensitive to insulin, the hormone that helps transport glucose in the cells. So delayed glucose uptake. As a result, glucose might not be cleared from the bloodstream as quickly, leading to higher glucose spikes after consuming carbohydrates. So the body essentially needs to relearn how to efficiently use carbohydrates for their advantage, right? And so like they've even done studies, for instance, on how do we reverse insulin resistance. And this is kind of what I want to get into more along the lines, because like people think that the last 10 years that they've been utilizing low carbohydrate diets for a specific reason, because yes, they do work to a sense, but they put your body into a spot where you actually accrue insulin resistance. So a lot of people, for instance, ask about carbohydrate-free diets. A carbohydrate-free diet requires a majority of diet be replaced by sources of fat and primarily protein and fruit and obviously fats. So this can be very damaging for people with severe insulin resistance as the fat will be inappropriately stored and can result in worsening metabolic complications. This is why we're encouraging people to instead follow a reduced carbohydrate and low-fat diet. And so that's where we come in and really understand we have to start with a low-carb diet and actually push carbs slowly onto our clients to really regulate the uptake of glucose properly within the overall clients. And I'm going to show you how we did it with Michael, but really it comes into context of understanding fat adaptation, right? Because fat adaptation is a metabolic state where your body switches to using fats as a primary fuel source and in the state of like ketosis, right? So now let's kind of get into like the craze of the fasting, the sugar fasting craze, right? Where people you're saying, you know, I'm doing this because insulin resistance is caused by low carb. They're basically utilizing a high sugar diet. They are cutting their protein very low, cutting their fats very low, and they're cutting their carbs and their sugar very high, which is like one it's people are having success with, but also people having not as much success with as well. Because when you do this, one, you don't want to lower protein. It's the most primary beneficial macromolecule in today's diet, right? And so we don't want to reduce protein intake because the idea of the overall sugar diet is that when you reduce your fats and protein, the cells have no choice but to start learning how to utilize glucose properly again. And so like take for instance this diagram. So this is what happens when you go into a keto diet, right? The cells no longer know how to uptake glucose properly. So the sugar diet is a kind of more speed-lined way of tailing the body to understand how to utilize glucose properly. So the problem with the sugar diet is basically advanced glycation in products pose significant health risks, contribute to development and progression of various diseases. When we think about advanced glycation in products, like cross-linking, AGEs can form cross-linking between proteins, altering their structure and functioning, disruptive cellular processes, oxidative stress, inflammation, and RAGEs. So how do we reverse this properly without utilizing a high, the sugar fasting craze? Because this is just another fad diet at the end of the day, right? The sugar craze is just another fad diet at the end of the day that's going to help you see very fast progress in some individuals. Like a majority of individuals won't see great progress with the sugar fasting, but some might. But there's a concept behind it that is actually very true and is actually very beneficial. And it's the exact process that we utilize with our clients with carbohydrate metabolism. So how do we reverse insulin resistance? First, you have to understand that exercise opens the door for glucose transport into the muscle cell, bypassing the block in insulin action. If you have muscle insulin resistance, you can normalize the storage of ingested carbohydrate intake into the muscle as glycogen, decreasing the conversion of carbohydrate into fat and liver. This in turn leads to protection of development of fatty liver disease, improvement in plasma lipid profile. And this is simply just an excerpt posted by Gerald L. Schumann, encouraged patients with diabetes, prediabetes to find physical activity. Obviously, we know that physical activity will improve insulin resistance, but also will, gaining good muscle tissue. So if we put all these concepts into play with the sugar fasting diet, that's actually seeing, pretty good progress in some individuals, but it's also putting you in a spot where you are at the risk of advanced end-product glycation. But we also understand the concept of it, of what it's really trying to do, which is reopen glucose cells to accept new glucose properly. We can utilize all this properly into actually putting into an actual structured plan utilizing carbohydrate metabolism, because that's primarily what the sugar diet is trying to do, is trying to structure it to transition your body into a carbohydrate metabolism state. So carbohydrate metabolism, for instance, is the body developing efficiencies in upregulating transport mechanisms for whatever fuel is predominantly being used. So fat adaptation, obviously from low carbohydrate diet, is basically what keto is. But on the other hand of things, there's something called a carbohydrate metabolism state. On the other hand, involves the body's process of carbohydrates for energy, primarily through glucose, and is the default fuel source for most people. So keep in mind, the sugar diet, this is what it's already trying to do. But it's also cutting fats extremely low to the point where we're having hormonal issues, but it's also cutting protein so low that we're losing muscle tissue. So although the sugar diet is seeing great progress, I won't lie, there is complications with understanding that we don't want to lower protein intake and detriment muscle tissue, and we don't want to lower fat intake to the point where it lowers hormonal issues, right? Because after a certain point, if you lower fats enough, you will start to accrue certain hormonal issues, because fats play a crucial role in maintaining thyroid levels, testosterone levels. And so if we put all this context together, we can utilize carbohydrate metabolism and structure it to the point where we're getting the same benefits out of our sugar diet, but we're also getting good structure within our protein and our fats. So we're still structuring within carbohydrate metabolism as carbohydrates as the main fuel source, but with carbohydrate metabolism, we can actually regulate it a lot better. So carbohydrate metabolism is crucial for providing the body with energy and regulating blood glucose levels. It also plays a role in digestive health, cholesterol, triglyceride metabolism, and can be even beneficial for athletes. It's energy source, digestive health, blood sugar regulation, cholesterol and triglyceride metabolism, and even benefits for athletes, right? Other potential benefits, some studies suggest that diet-rich whole grains and fiber may help lower risk of heart disease, stroke, type 2 diabetes, and certain cancers, right? So low-carb diets may promote fat loss and improve certain metabolic parameters, but their long-term effects and suitability for everyone requires certain research. In summary, carbohydrates are vital for energy production, digestive health, and blood sugar regulation. They also play a role in athletic performance and may offer protection against certain diseases. So let's go through exactly how we did this for Michael, because I want to show you what this looks like in active concept, reducing him from 11.7 to 5.3, which, if you don't know by now, that is tremendous. That is unheard of. And we've done this multiple times with our clients. So he came to us right here. Look, he was eating 1,200 calories, 1,600 calories, 1,600 calories, and he was right at 244 pounds, right? So he came to us 244 pounds with a 11.1 A1C, and this is kind of what he looked like right here. So what we did is, I want you guys to write this down too. It's how we structure the body for carbohydrate metabolism is, yes, we keep the carbohydrates relatively low at first because we don't want to flood the body with glucose, because we know due to like the glucose uptake and glucose regulation. The body won't accept glucose properly. But we do want to put carbohydrates in a specific amount so that we're kind of uptaking glucose a little bit better. We first of all want to get a good protein goal, and we want to set a good fat goal. So there's two staples within carbohydrate metabolism are protein and fats. And how to calculate protein is usually 1 to 1.2 times your body weight. So for overweight, we kind of do maybe more along the 0.8 with their protein and 0.3 times their fats. But it should be right along those lines, is that if you are an overweight, unhealthy individual that has a very low protein intake, start at 0.8 times your body weight in pounds. If you're, an average weight individual, start at 1 to 1.2. You don't need to go over 250 grams of protein. That's unnecessary because you can utilize those calories more efficiently with carbohydrates. Now, for fat intake, you want to do that 0.3 to 0.4, typically right around 0.3 to 0.4. Don't ever go lower than 45, and you don't ever need to go higher than 70, right? So if we structure this properly, we can structure the body similar to like what the sugar diet does, is which is pushing the body to uptake glucose properly, but we can also have a mechanism of maintaining good tissue within muscles, maintaining good hormones within fats, because the how much does matter. And so I want you to show you what happens when we implemented this exact process with just structured macronutrients from 314 to 411, so just a month. And we didn't change anything, any macronutrients. We started them off right at, I think, 1,900 calories, which is a little bit more than what he had been eating. But the thing is that he was eating a very low protein intake, very low fat intake, and we had to fix that first. We had to start him at a low carbohydrate intake and start to work him up in carbohydrates. So, like, for Michael, right around 200 grams of protein was perfect. Right around 60 grams of fat was perfect. And then we backfill the rest with carbohydrates to meet right around that 1,900 to 2,000 calorie mark. And what I mean by backfill is that we filled the calories with carbohydrates to meet that 1,940 calories. But the most important thing when understanding what we did properly is like getting a structured protein goal and a structured fat goal, rather than the sugar fasting craze, which is just like cut fats and protein as low as possible and just eat as much sugar as possible, which yes, which will work. It will open up glucose cells properly, but like you and I both know that you do need protein within your diet because it's the most important macro molecule for maintaining health and overall hormones when we're trying to understand the advanced glycation end products in mitigation of their overall health risks. So we want a good protein goal and a good fat goal because fat does, like I said, regulate hormone levels. But we got to get a fat goal, a good protein goal, and then we back for the rest of carbohydrates. And so just within 1 month, right, you can see right here in the notes, from one month goes by, 1,200 calories to 1,940 calories, utilizing carbohydrate metabolism. We were able to bring him to, went to my doctor, my A1C is down from 10.8 to 7.6, diabetes is slowly going away. And this is just Michael himself, right? And he lost not only 10 pounds, eating, almost 500 more calories a day, but he also almost cut his A1C in half. Right? So we keep going along this route, and then we just simply each week, 25 more grams of carbohydrates, 25 more grams of carbohydrates, 25 more grams of carbohydrates. So you notice that as the weeks go on, as he's checking in, we're giving him more carbohydrates, one, based upon his check-ins, yes, but also two, making sure that his body is responding to the glucose correctly. Because as the cells start to open up and accept glucose uptake, we can start to give the body more glucose. And it's going to, one, benefit an overall muscle tissue being grown, because we know now that if more muscle tissue we have, the better you are for insulin resistance. The more exercise you have, the better you are for insulin resistance. So we have certain daily goals for Michael, like steps per day. We put certain supplementation that helps with insulin resistance in his plan, correlated to what he specifically needs. He's working out maybe 3 days a week right now, not much, 3 days a week, just to make sure that he keeps his heart health in check, keeps active, he's burning calories, and he's building good muscle tissue, right? Because that's all of these together, carbohydrate metabolism, utilizing carbohydrates, but also making sure that he's staying active is how you reverse insulin resistance in a full. You got to open up the cells first. You got to build the muscle tissue to improve glucose uptake so the glucose can be transferred properly somewhere important, and then you can start actually raising the carbohydrates, right? And it's actually incredible what happens when you actually do this correctly. And as we go on, you can see, and we got them all the way up to 2,800 calories, right? So we got them at 2,800 calories, and we started doing actually a little bit of extra cardio, right? And it's not much, 20 minutes 4 times a week. on the incline treadmill. It's not like he's doing hours of cardio. We raised his steps from 8K to 10K, which is something you can do as well to increase energy expenditure. And we actually got him down to, like, we dropped the calories a little bit now that we got his calories up, because we now have a little bit more leverage in the form of calories to take from. And we were able to not only, one, improve his blood glucose levels, but we're also able to get his body up to 2,800 calories, which is 1,600 more calories than where he started. Right? But look what happens when we do this properly. We prime the metabolism. We fix a lot of things that are going on within the insulin resistance. We build good muscle tissue. We have a good plan with, just a little bit of structured, organized actual lifting, a little bit of structured, organized walking to keep blood flowing. And right on the 24th, he actually hit 230. Right? And so, yeah, we did drop the calories a little bit at 2,500 calories, but this is what's most important. His A1C dropped to 5.3 once we actually flipped him over and actually started reducing the calorie intake. And this is what he said on July 25th. I'm at a new low of 229, right? And so you can see right here, and let me pull up these two side by side so you guys can really see the impact that this has made on him in general, on his health, yes, but also from like a body composition perspective, because there are guys who come to us, obviously, like guys who want to get really shredded, and absolutely we can do that when we're very, very damn good at it as well. But there are guys who come to us and like, hey, I want help getting healthy, right? And look how much healthier he does look. Like his front shot looks good. His face is leaning out. And we're not done with him. Like, he's like only a little bit way through our program right now. We're going to continue to keep working with him. And, I'll get him on a testimony here soon so you guys can hear from him yourself. But we're all currently still working with him. But like the important factor to note is that what we did from a carbohydrate metabolism perspective is very similar to the sugar diet, but it implies not reducing protein intake, not reducing fat intake, but also implies that we're putting good processes in place with supplementation. We're going to put in good processes in place with workouts, building muscle, even correlated steps to keep blood flowing, to keep non-energy activity thermogenesis high. And this is what happens when you get everything perfect. You can transition the body to almost pre-diabetic to reducing the diabetes almost entirely. So like this is what it looks like perfectly, and how you can utilize carbohydrate metabolism to improve insulin resistance. Because like I said, the whole sugar fasting craze, the whole mechanism and the idea is when you reduce your fast, the cells have no choice to learning how to utilize glucose properly. But and people are doing this because they have insulin resistance. They're forcing the body to utilize carbohydrates. But what we do as a program, what we do more beneficially from an overall scientific perspective, is that we utilize carbohydrate metabolism to improve insulin sensitivity by uptaking glucose into the cells properly, right? Because once you uptake this glucose into the cells properly, we can open up how the body utilizes carbohydrates, reducing the insulin resistance that people are actually getting. And so you can even see right here how insulin gets caught, right? And this is what's most important to understand, is that from a higher level aspect, insulin resistance is caused by the overconsumption of calories, fats, and carbohydrates that lead to a metabolic gridlock of not knowing what to actually put into the cells intramuscularly, into the cells for overall energy. And it also is caused by low-carb diets that are down-regulating glucose receptors. So how you fix both that and uptake insulin properly is that you have to put the body in a state where it has no choice but to utilize glucose as a primary energy source, like the sugar diet. The problem with the sugar diet is the advanced glycation end products have severe consequences, as well as some people don't see the best results with the overall sugar diet because you're basically going from one extreme to the other. And if you go to one extreme to another, your body can have significant pullback and resistance against it, which we don't want to happen. Utilizing carbohydrate metabolism the way that we use it from a mechanistic standpoint within metabolic priming is we structure it so we are slowly giving the body carbohydrates when it needs carbohydrates. And, how we do that properly is, yes, they check in with us once a week. We see their energy levels, how we see their food intake, what type of foods they eat. We're able to see how well their gym sessions are going. Are they gaining muscle? And all of these have a key correlated data standpoint, and if their body is ready for more carbohydrates. And then that's how we properly introduce carbohydrates back in the diet and improve insulin sensitivity. And so using, metabolic priming in general, we've been able to help almost 450 guys in the last 6 months. And these are some of our, like, one of our, obviously, yes, but some of our best case studies, I will say, in the last 6 months. And all of these guys have been on low carb diets. Every single one of these guys have been on low carb diets. And we've been able to get them up in calories and significantly down in weight, utilizing metabolic priming and carbohydrate metabolism from a mechanistic standpoint on understanding insulin uptake and insulin sensitivity to understand what we need to do to properly transition the body into a carbohydrate metabolism state. So if you are somebody who has been struggling with insulin resistance, or you've been struggling with low carb diets, and you need a higher level approach that is designed for you from a mechanistic standpoint of overall scientific background, there will be a link in the description for you to sign up for a time to book a call with our team. We'll see if it's a great fit for you guys to work together. I make these videos for the purpose of teaching you guys exactly more about metabolism, more about high level strategies, more about the ins and outs of what's really going on within your body. But I do leave 90% of information off this channel for my obviously paid for clients. So just imagine what they do get. But this will help you make progress, and I hope that this was very eye-opening to kind of understand why people are going crazy over the sugar fasting, how you can reverse insulin resistance by uptaking glucose properly, and then like how it's even possible to reduce A1C from 11.7 to 5.3, which is quite literally unheard of. But we are one of the fastest growing online fitness companies on the internet as of right now. We transparently sign on at almost 20 clients a week right now because we're that advanced. Like, we understand the basis of metabolism and what each client needs specifically when it comes down to customization of each and every single client. And so if you've been struggling, there's no need to struggle anymore, because I'm 1000% confident whatever the situation may be, me and my team will help you. We'll come in, we'll structure everything, we'll make it so goddamn easy to follow that like it's just following a simple GPS, a step-by-step instruction, because that's the purpose of what we do. And our goal within our company, within our business, is that client success comes number one, right behind our reputation. So if you like this video, like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time.